Good morning and welcome to your daily Gameface. I am Dr. Kim Lannon here with Lou, and I don't know if you could see me, but I was not in the chair at this
Oh,
at that.
I was waiting till you get back in the chair. Yeah,
Oh, good, you could see me because I
you can
had
see.
to
Yeah,
deflect and break up a child fight that was happening. That
for a
was
child fight. Yeah.
a fur child fight. Yes. Well, there's no other kind in my house, so all of a sudden it's always the way, right? If I don't have Rocky and he's not barking, I have a fur child issue going on of like epicness. Like they were fighting over the sun in the couch, and then they were fighting over each other. And yes, so we've had a very busy morning. We've already
Yeah.
been to the vet this morning for our yearly checkup on Cinder, and she got all of her shots because we're doing hiking. We're doing, because they're animal assist therapy cats. So we're getting them ready to hike some mountains.
Do you have your own parking spot at the vet? I mean,
Nobody should have my own parking spot, and I should have a placard in gold, and I should have a wing.
I was gonna say the place should be
In
named
two,
after you.
in two hospitals, I should have a wing. And for all the people that are asking me about Echo, Echo is doing fabulous. I mean, considering we're 11 weeks out of the diagnosis of when I diagnosed her on the 25th of May. So roughly whatever that is. She's doing, we've had two little anomalies on the board where she's having a little harder time eating bigger pieces of, she likes to take a piece of actual chicken and tear it apart like she's on the savannah, and
Sure. Yeah.
she's able to tear it. It's the swallowing, because I know this is going to be graphic and probably triggering, but this is what today's show is about. It's about being able to grow past your uncomfortable spots. But it's the tumor is up front right here in the rostral part, right under her canine in the front on the left side, and it's moving forward, thank God, at least for now. So it's not going back into her throat. However, it's quite lovely in terms of being facetious. And it's got it moves her tongue over and stuff. So really her food processing ability is that she really should be just eating moussey things and biscuity things and high calorie, it's like getting to eat ice cream all the time, but healthy. And so on Monday she had a really hard time. She really wanted her chicken and she was really chewing it, but then it would get stuck in the tumor, which is crazy to say, but that's the facts. So stuck in the tumor, and because of that she couldn't swallow it on that side, and because so it's a choking hazard. So we have invested in a new blender, and we have invested in, I went to PetSmart last night and bought a million different mousse products, Tiki Baby, Wellness Baby, and she likes them all. So we're doing fine. So I've found alternatives, and then, there's the husband who got in the way of the whole process.
Okay.
That's a whole different story, but we won't go there. But she this morning we were up galloping around. People are, that are following me on social media. If you'd like to follow me on TikTok, it's Ash and Cinder, all one word, Ash and Cinder, ASH and Cinder. I have many followers and tons of people liking it.
Nice.
But I'm doing her cancer journey with her in general, but I'm also doing her cancer journey with her acupuncture. So she has her acupuncture twice a week, and that has been doing, wonders. The whole concept of doing the acupuncture on her was to be able to, just like in people, to reduce inflammation, to reduce the size of whatever the issue is. So like if you're a person and you're doing it, right, it's to, reduce cortisol levels, or it's to reduce down like spleen inflammation, or kidney, or any of the inflammation points, or to release energy and shrink things, like tumors or cysts or things like that. And fingers crossed, it's working. We're on our 7th tonight. We'll be on our 7th treatment. We do it Wednesdays and Saturdays. And we have a lovely woman who comes to the house who is a veterinarian who only practices in Chinese medicine now, but she's fully licensed and trained as a regular DVM, but she is a full believer, as I am, in naturopathy. And so she and I are doing all the naturopathy things. And she comes in, her name's Dr. Carrie Bonacorsi. I told her I'd be talking about her all the time. If you want to have her, she comes to the house. She can, you don't have to have an ailing, dying, terminally ill pet. It's for arthritis. It's for pancreatic issues. It's for IBD. It's for asthma and animal, like, so any of the ailments that people get, because all animals get them because we're mammals. So she comes and she's energy garden vet, garden energy. Look that up for me, Lou. Find out because she's worthy and she's in the Boston area. She travels. I don't think she's too expensive. I think she's reasonable for her time and to come to, and she makes late house calls and early house calls, and she's always present and she's very good. And I can't speak highly enough of her. So I think it's Energy Garden Vet. I don't know if you go to if I go to my TikTok page, it's correctly put in there. Or my Instagram page, which is Kim Lannon, Dr. Kim Lannon.
Yes, it's Energy Garden Vet.
Energy Garden Vet, and she's out of Watertown, Mass. But she, as we would say, have gun will travel, or have vet will travel. So she travels, and she's awesome. So we have very late night appointments and very early morning appointments. She's got the same kind of schedule I have. It's very interesting. We run in parallel. So I highly recommend that for people as my PSA for the day, for people who are looking for even holistic care just for your animals and health and wellness. And you don't have to take your cat to the vet. And that's a beautiful thing. And I didn't put the thumbs up on that. So I don't know who did, but maybe me lifting up my glass gave me a thumbs up.
Maybe. I saw the end of it, but I don't know where that came from.
That was weird. Anyway, so here we are, and it was a very whirlwind weekend. How was yours?
Oh, the same. Whirlwind.
Yep. Yes, I was up and down to my favorite place on a driving spree 4 times because
wow,
this is what you do for your child, your fur baby child. We don't leave her alone for very long. So John does one day on and I do one day off, and he does one day off and I do one day on. So we switch back and forth, and he has family in town from California. So we've been bouncing. And so, yeah. So I was literally up there on Sunday night, had dinner and turned around, came back, and I was like, I'm out.
Wow.
Then turned back around, went back up on Monday because I had to close out the condo. So I was like, yeah, so the weekend was a blur, but it was a fabulous blur. So anyway.
Nice drives both ways though.
Oh, there was a small little bit of traffic because they were doing construction on Sunday night, of course. And then, but other than that, it was great weather, beautiful up there. It was fabulous. Before I came home to go back to work yesterday morning, got up bright and early and did an 8-mile hike. It was wonderful. And then got in the car and came back to work. The benefit of being in the White Mountains is you can wake up in the morning, get in a beautiful hike up the mountain, and be back in Boston area in no time to work.
Well, no time is an exaggeration, but yeah.
Well, I mean, it's an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And when you're in peace mode, it's like wonderful, right? Because I'm always practicing my rise, right? So I'm always in my peace bubble, containing it. And so I know people have been waiting for me to do a show on anticipatory grief. And I think I psychologically am avoiding it because I'm always sitting in it. And so therefore, because I'm sitting in my shit with anticipatory grief all the time, and my heart is like on fire 90% of the time. And people are like, how are you? I'm like, oh, I'm fine. Well, I have anticipatory grief. So, my vet and I were talking about this morning, my other vet, Alex, we were talking, she just lost one of her dog. And we were talking about anticipatory grief and how awful. It's the worst. It's just, it's you're waiting constantly for the inevitable. And it's, and there's not, so we did a review today of systems, even though my little child Echo was not in the room, we did a review of systems of what else can we do for her? And because it's squamous cell carcinoma of the jaw, and cats are second-class citizens in the world of research because they're so closely related to human beings that if they find research that isn't good or it's really good, it can be transversed over to human beings. They aren't as they're reticent, I should say. They're reticent to do the research or to publish the research because then they have to put it out for humans because cats and humans are very closely connected.
Weird.
Did you know
that? No, I didn't.
So it's got a big implication. So it's very difficult. So I spent half my weekend writing emails to the researchers at UC Davis, who I spent tons of time on the phone with over, I keep saying New Year's, 4th of July, trying to find out the biochem company that they're using to try to produce the STAT3 inhibitor that helps stop the tumor. And nobody's responding to me. So I'm a little, But you know me, I'm persistent.
This ought to be good. Yeah.
No, I'm very nice. I'm always very nice. I'm just persuasive.
Firm.
I'm persuasive. So today we're moving from emails to calls.
Oh, good.
We're going back to calling because I got response. It was weird. I got response over the holiday weekend, and now I can't get anybody to respond to me. Not because I think it's just because school's about to go back in and people are busy.
Yeah. So a lot going on.
I feel like I'm a vet. I do. I'm a doctor in integrative medicine in mental health. I'm a certified nutritionist in integrative mental health. I'm a sports psychologist. I am a clinical psychologist, and I'm a vet by proxy.
Can only be about 4 credits away.
Literally, I know more about squamous cell carcinoma of the body than I ever wanted to know. But now I know.
Yeah, I know. Well, that's the way it works.
You know, I know more. Here we go. I know more shit about shit than I ever want to know about shit.
Yep.
Here's to me. And people always say, you know so many things. I'm like, yeah, life experience gives me a lot of knowledge. And then I go deep diving to find out stuff. My vet and I are friends for years, and she just laughs at me. She's like, Kim, sometimes you know more about this stuff than I do. I'm like, oh, that's because I sit and rack my brain.
Yeah, I can tell people I know how to fix everything I've ever broken.
Do you know that this is important, though? This is an important thing for you, not to go down rabbit holes because you are being obsessive compulsive, and not to go down rabbit holes that find you at the end of the road, always finding like it's death, it's doom, but to really, be an advocate for yourself and really research for yourself about things. Don't just take people always at their word. I tell all my clients, and I think that they find it very refreshing, including my students. I'm always like, I don't know, and I may not know, but I will find out. And if I don't find out, I want you to find out and come back and tell me because I don't know. And people are always like, whoa, that's such a weird concept that you actually say that. And I want to know. So then people will ask me questions in class and I'm like, I don't know that answer. And I'll say that. I'm like, but I'm going to find out.
It's the most faithful sign of intelligence. People say they don't know and ask questions.
Because I love learning. Yesterday I learned 4 new things. 4 new things yesterday. I love that.
What did you learn?
Well, they're related to squamous cell carcinoma.
Okay. Yeah.
But I learned 4 new things that were applicable to human beings because of how it crosses over. And so now I also know things about dietary things and things that can happen. And and then one thing about how to lobby Washington to get more funding for that, but that's a whole nother story because it's not go very far right now in the current state of affairs, but in a couple of years, maybe.
It's one thing I notice about people all the time is the ratio of statement to question.
People have a lot of statements, very little questions. I always tell people ask questions, less talk, more questions.
Yep.
Less talk, because people just like to talk at you. So yeah, like this. On that note, I'm going to stop just talking at you and I'm going to go to my topic of the day to help people, right?
Excellent. Yep.
So my topic of the day, in keeping with our rise on the 12th day of July, and we are smack in the middle of, I keep saying July, August.
August, yeah.
I want it to be July because I feel like I'm missing the summer. Is we're still rising, right? We're still working on the rise. And speaking of rise, Lou is going to put up, I'm going to send you the PDF, Lou, at some point soon here. But this is my commercial, my PSA. I'm having a women's weekend retreat, November 6th through 8th It's going to be fantastic. I was with the people this weekend that I am hosting at. I am the main host for this weekend. I have massage therapy, I have Reiki, I have chiropractic, I have nutritional and exercise, I have uh, uh, um, fireside circles of chat. I have clearing of energy. I have body and mind and soul alignment going on. I have procured beautiful farm to table breakfast, farm to table food in general. We're doing nature therapy hikes because we have great research around how nature therapy and being out in nature helps us with some yoga and some meditative time and of course some downtime, and it's going to be fabulous. The price right now is super super cheap. Like the people at the inn, the inn on Golden Pond, when they saw the price, they were like, Kim, most people are like double that price. And I said, I know, I started it at double the price plus when I started it, and people were like, it's too expensive. So I said, I will do an early bird special and you can get in on it. And because they're like, you're offering so much stuff, and then people are like, you'd pay, most retreats for a day are the amount of money that I'm charging for 3 days. So early bird special right now in August is the price that will go up, and I'll give it to you, Lou, in a PDF in a second. But
Okay.
I just want you guys to know it's up in Holderness, New Hampshire. It's about an hour and 40 minutes outside of Boston. It's an hour and change from like the border of New Hampshire, Boston, and Vermont. If you are outside of that area, it's a couple hours. It's worth the trip. People from Connecticut, New York. If you want to fly up from Florida, Texas, California, we have ways to get arranged to get you there. So it's not just for New England, but it's going to be a beautiful time of year. It will be just around the whole peaking of, and just probably past the whole peaking of the leaf season, and it will be beautiful. Hopefully no snow, but that's okay because it makes it wonderful for fireside chats. But it is a women's weekend. It's the prep for the men's weekend that will be coming then in the winter, early spring, and then it will also be a prep time for, also I'm doing a couples weekend, and I'm going to be starting to do more retreats and day workshops, etc. So I just want to give that out there because it sort of goes along with this whole rise piece and building into that, because I think that having very specific times to sit down and do those things with hyper focus and not just doing an hour a week is fantastic. So that being said, moving into what I was going to say is, in keeping with Rise, I always try to take feedback from the weeks before, and people saying like, okay, now what, right? So what's come up in the past few weeks for people across the board is, how do you sit with uncomfortable feelings and still move forward with your Rise moment? How do you get past that? How do you move through it? How do you move forward? I have one client that he talks about this a lot with, he's trying to make some big transitional changes in some life things, like real estate, finances, relationship, business, I like all of it, right? And so we were talking a lot on Tuesday about that. And so I was like, oh, this is perfect because it's sort of in line with what I was going to do anyways, as I avoid talking about anticipatory grief. Right?
Yeah.
Let's analyze my avoidance. Thank you very much.
There you go.
Right? I'm sitting in my shit. So when you are sitting in your shit, how do you not sit with your shit and try to get out of the uncomfortability? So I'm going to go back to just the basics for a second and just talk about, like, I've said this all year, and I say this all the time, and this will be part of my book. This is a chapter. It's pausing instead of reacting. People are so reactive in life. It's such a common socialized piece of us. I find it westernized for the most part for socialization, that we are reactors, not responders.
Right.
We are taught, no matter, you can be in the best kind of parenting situation, even in the authoritative, which is the best type, which is you have high warmth and praise for your children, and you have reasonable expectations that are high, that are not below the bar, but nonetheless, people become reactive. Now, some of that is socially learned, but a lot of that also comes with born-in temperament, which is you're either easy, slow to warm up, or difficult. And I think it's really difficult, no pun intended, for difficult temperamented people to really not be reactive. But if we can go with the first step, which is pausing instead of reacting, which is also that the first step in your growth is learning. This is so important. I procured this statement over and over the week. I was like, I want to say this the right way. Learning, growth is learning to create space between what happens and what you do next. So important. And I think that gap, when people ask me to write the book, I'm going to talk about that a little bit, is one of my stuck points for the years, besides the fact that I didn't want to write it because I don't want to be sued by the people I'm going to write it about, which still could happen because, even though I started it, I've had a couple of people say, but what if you get sued? And I'm like, well, I've kind of gotten over that. So, it's the fact that, like, when we grow, we have to learn to create a space. There's the peace bubble, right? Create your peace bubble, creating the space between what happens, what has happened, and what are you going to do next. We are so quick to have something happen and then jump on it, or and have a feeling, create a thought that then we act on. And that is something that is a trigger. And trigger, there's so many words out there that get overused, and trigger is one of them, right? So when something triggers you, right? So when something happens and then you react, that's your trigger that's then making you have a behavior, right? You get triggered, and then your instinct is to explain yourself, defend yourself, seek reassurance, fix the situation, and essentially make discomfort disappear. And the theme today would be like, how do you sit with the uncomfortability and move through it in general? Because people have such a hard time. Someone was talking to me at the beginning of the week they got into a relational chat that didn't go well, that people had a conversation a week ago. That it got brought up again. The bride did not, the bride did not remember it going the same way as he did. And therefore, instead of it being a peaceful conversation, it turned into a volatile conversation because the space that he created, right? Because he's the one doing the work, she's not, right? So the space he created, the one I'm working with, the space he created did not preclude what happened next. It escalated and deteriorated it very quickly because he got immediately into explaining himself. He defended his position. He sought reassurance. He tried to fix the situation, and then he wanted the discomfort and the uncomfortability to disappear. And she did too, but he knows how to do it. But because she's not matching, it just went, it imploded or exploded. And instead, my advice post it, and when we got to the conversation, I said, you didn't take your pause. You didn't take your breath and say, what am I feeling right now? What is coming up for me that I'm tempted to do because I feel this way? Instead, this person acted on it and jumped on it, and their temptation to do the out, right? And so this is, and it's a hard lesson. You do not have to act simply because you have an emotion. Just because you have something in your brain or your heart that makes you feel something does not mean you have to react to it. The pause allows your nervous system, your central nervous system, your heart rate, your hand sweat, your pricklies under your arm, your fury that comes through your face, whatever it is. The pause allows you, like a deep breath, right? The pause allows your nervous system to settle enough for you to respond, which means you come from logic. You don't come from emotion.
Right.
And you respond healthy when you come from that place of your value system, what you think and believe in, rather than from urgency, like instant gratification, I must respond, or out of fear, or out of an old default pattern. And when you do that, it will the nervous system settles enough for you to be able to have yourself respond in that way, and growth begins in the space between the trigger and the reaction. So the thing that happens you can't stop, which is the trigger.
Right.
But the space bubble in between is where you take the pause and you decide, am I going to react to this or am I going to respond? And the pause gives you that creation of space between the two of what you'll do next. And that can save you a lot of heartache. And that's the most important piece of that first step.
Well, how often do you find in life that the correct response, the most effective response, is fight or flight? So you got to
Yes.
get out of that fight or flight before you
Yes.
respond,
Right.
because they're rarely effective responses.
And so it's funny that you mentioned that, because he and I had that conversation about fight and flight, and that there's an alternative to fight and flight, which is not fawn, because that's a passive thing, right?
Yeah.
Instead of fight and flight, we do we just we just settle. We settle. We don't have to fight or flee. We've been taught to fight or flee.
Right.
We don't have to do that, because that's not creating the space of growth in between. That's immediate responding, which isn't responding, it's reacting. Response
Right.
has no emotion to it. Reacting has emotion to it. It means that you did not take your step back and go, before I say something, I better step it back, right? And people often, when I say disengage, they say detach, don't talk to them. No, it's disengage your brain from your reaction pattern. Stop jumping into what you're going to say. Take a breath. Ask yourself, what am I feeling right now? I know it's cliche, because people get into that, oh, it's so, cheesy. No, it's not cheesy. Literally take a breath and say, what am I feeling right now? What do I need? And what am I tempted to do because I feel this way? I feel so angry. I'm going to lash out. I feel so upset because that guy cut me off and I'm going to flip him off. I was driving this on my warrior weekend, right? And a guy in the left fast lane, I was going 90. And I was passing someone, and he got mad, came around the right side of me. Now, mind you, I'm going 90. Don't report me. I'm going 90. He comes around the right side of me, sticks his hand out the window, and flips me off. Now, this actually helped inform, because while I'm driving, I'm often thinking of my podcast. This helped me inform myself about the fact that you could have had a different choice. And my response was no response. And my response was, I just let him pass. And then I
Yeah.
moved over to the right lane. There was no one there, but I'd already passed the other person. But I'm like, what a waste of your time. And you know what? All the times in my life, in my head, I've said, where are the police when you need them? Literally 4 miles down the road,
Oh.
a statey in New Hampshire was waiting in. I don't know if he saw him coming, because, the radar. He pulled him over,
Oh,
and
wow.
wow, that never happens.
I know.
But in my heart, and in my in-between spaces, I had a flurry of reactions. I was like, I could flip him off. I could blow him a kiss, which is something I've done in the past, which is I do not prescribe that. That is
No.
not that's not responsive. That's escalating in this day and age. People, especially up there, have guns. I would like to
Yeah.
not get shot. Um, and I was just in my peace mode. And I'm like, I put the peace space between what happened and what was coming next. And he was miserable, like, dude, you
Yeah.
you and he was annoying other people, and he got himself pulled over. And it had nothing to do with me. And I thought, well, isn't that karma? I'm right biting you in the butt.
I like it though. You know how
But
many times a week I pray for that?
I know, but I had a moment where I really thought about my statement about I created a space bubble that was healthy between what was happening and what was going to happen next. Because I could have created a very different scenario that had nothing to do with him other than he flipped me off. And I chose not to, because I'm like, what a waste of time. And I was like, what am I feeling right now? I laughed because I thought, oh, he's not having a good day. And then what I was tempted to do was a couple things, but then I was like, but I don't need to
Yeah.
because what a waste. And then you know what? I think believing in the energy of the world, returning to the, universe to me, he got picked up. I'm a firm believer in that. I'm
It's
so
so satisfying.
it was because it so rarely happens, but I really
Yeah.
manifested it in my mind out into the world and the universe to say, I'm going to get growth from this, and he's going to. And I watched him. I was watching him because he didn't really slow that. I had him in the eye line, and I knew that I watch for police officers on my tracker, and I saw the police officer coming. I saw it coming, and I was like, and I saw those lights come on when he was approaching. I'm like, he's going to get picked up, and he did. And that
Amen.
and it didn't make me like happy. It made me like, well, that me not having to do anything made me thing that he had himself, right? He created himself. So anyway,
Plus,
so
it kept yourself more at peace than you would have if you get into a response match.
well, I kept my peace bubble and it didn't
Yeah.
it didn't impact me. I was like, oh well that thank God it wasn't me. I was like, yeah, karma and energy. As you know, I'm a firm believer about energy into the universe. Energy returns, and if you're putting out good energy, you get
Yep.
good energy. If you put out negative or you put out toxic energy, you're going to get it back. So anyway, so the next thing I want to say as my next step in this is sitting with discomfort. People like instant gratification. People do not like to sit with uncomfortability. They don't like to sit with no. They don't
Right.
like to sit with I can't, right? So discomfort isn't necessarily a sign that something's wrong, even though people feel like I'm uncomfortable. This is terrible. I can't, because people do not like to sit in that. But sometimes discomfort is the price of doing something new, healthy, or courageous. You have to be able to sit with the discomfort of the price that comes with, right? Discomfort isn't always a bad thing. I mean, it feels yucky, it feels
Right.
bad, but it comes at a price in my field of work and the way I look at it. And sort of this is in my chapter of this, what I'm writing about is it comes at the price of doing something that's new, healthy, forward moving, and courageous to something that you're not used to. And so you may feel rejected. And so therefore you resist reaching out because you've interpreted that someone doesn't like you or someone's not returning your call, because we have this global universal fear of people rejecting us if they don't return our phone call right away, or we don't get a text back right away, instead of thinking maybe the person's busy,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
With the uncomfortability that someone's going to reject you will make you potentially resist reaching out because you get a hair across your butt about it and say like, I'm not going to do that. Well, how about just relax and just take a second, right? You may feel in uncomfortability, right? When you're sitting with discomfort, you may feel uncertain and want immediate answers. Well, sometimes you can't get immediate
Right.
answers. I have a lot of people looking for jobs right now in my practice that are struggling because I had one person that went through 5 rounds of
With the
interviews.
same employer. Yeah.
Yeah, yep, 5 rounds of interviews, got down. That was supposedly them, the two people went over like 3 months. It was insane. And
Wow.
I've seen this a lot over, especially since the pandemic. I've seen this a lot, right? And they felt really uncertain and they wanted immediate answers, and they ended up not getting hired. But I was like, there's nothing that you can do to change that.
Right.
We did all the right things. I made sure that they followed up, they, whatever. And I think the other person was internal. I mean, there are things beyond their control, right?
Right.
So my client felt very misunderstood. They felt like they wanted to write to them and over explain like what they could do for them and, please reconsider. I'm like, no, we're not going to over explain ourselves.
Right.
We're not going to take because we feel misunderstood, because we feel less than, because we feel rejected, that we want to do that. So their way of dealing with it in their head initially when they were talking to me was, well, now I'm not going to apply. I'm going to retreat. I'm going to run away. I'm like, no, no, no. We still need a job. So we're not going to just be afraid and run away. We have to be courageous. We have to sit with the uncomfortability that instead of escaping the feeling, we're going to, say something like, this is so uncomfortable and I can handle uncomfortable because uncomfortable is going to move me forward. You can get debilitated and completely demotivated when you're sitting with something uncomfortable because it's scary versus, wait a second, I'm uncomfortable. How do I change this?
Right.
I always say to patients and to my students and even my friends is you must take your uncomfortability and move through it. We still both can exist at the same time. You can be uncomfortable, but you can still move. Hence, my whole mantra of my practice for the past 30 something years is we function despite dysfunction. If you don't function despite the dysfunction, we fall apart. We implode in ourselves, right? And that's and that happens to so many people because they don't just go, this is uncomfortable, but I can handle the uncomfortable. They go, this is uncomfortable, so I quit.
Yeah.
This is uncomfortable, it's too scary. I'm not gonna sit with this discomfort. I'm gonna isolate, I'm gonna retreat, I'm gonna pick up, I'm gonna drink, I'm gonna drug, I'm gonna do something that's not good for me. Like, I'm gonna overeat, I'm gonna all those things because instead of dealing with the reality of what is and using something proactive and productive, they go right to a bad coping strategy.
Well, it's everyone equates well, they're uncomfortable because of the unknown. Everyone hates the unknown. That's the biggest
Mhm,
fear for everybody. But the
mhm.
unknown can be opportunity if it's handled correctly. And
Exactly,
any advancement, any gains, any growth is going to come put you in situations that you're not familiar with, and that's going to make you uncomfortable. But that's okay. That's opportunity.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so given what you just said, right? If you so talk about opportunity, if you name the emotion without turning it into a story, and that's important because people will have a I call it a fantastical line. They create a narrative around these things that's usually devastating to them, right? It's debilitating, it screws them up, it messes them up, it puts them off track, right? When you name an emotion without turning it into a story, there's a big difference between the language in the brain and how it neurologically will change the outcome. And people just kind of look at me sometimes when they don't understand that whole neurology piece. It's because it changes the way your body regulates. We have a
Right.
vagal nerve. The vagal nerve in the neck helps us regulate, and that gets regulated by the stories we tell ourselves. So if we name an emotion, which is something that makes us uncomfortable, and we then say something like I feel rejected and um that feels bad. That's a very different framing. Like, I feel rejected. I feel bad. So I've got to do something about it. That neurologically, like chemically, keeps the brain in a forward moving process, is
Hmm.
like it's the facts versus what the storyline I get a lot. And you'll hear this probably a lot too is I'm rejected. And because I'm rejected, I'm not good enough.
Yeah.
People pair the concept of what happened with a value set on themselves and their self-esteem, and then it crushes them because they're not moving through, they're moving to stuck point, right? It's not allowing the person to move through. It's allowing them to have something else. The what we do next is dictating the behavior that they're choosing. They're not doing the next thing that would be productive. Their feelings are information only. They don't need to then become the instruction of what you do.
Yeah.
And that's most of the time what people do. They take their feelings as information and then they expand, catastrophize. I call it Mount Kilimanjaro it. Everything is whoa, right? It's exploding, it's volcanic. And what they do with it is they create an instruction manual for themselves of I feel rejected, therefore I'm a terrible person, therefore no one loves me, therefore I'm going to retreat and do terrible awful things to myself, like drink myself tonight to death, be hungover tomorrow, I'm going to go out and be high risk behavior, I'm going to implode in myself and go sit all weekend and eat and then feel like crap. Like that, instead of it being like, okay, my feelings are information and now I have to work through them by moving forward, saying like I can have two things exist. My feelings can be uncomfortable and I still have to move and they can still be uncomfortable.
Oh,
It's
this is
not. all or nothing. It's not like, well, I have the feelings and therefore they have to go away. It's no, I have the feelings. And they're like, if you have a breakup, if you get fired from a job, if you're struggling with something, you have a loss of a family member or a fur baby, like your feelings are going to still be there, but you got to figure out what to do with them.
This is a variation of the spotlight effect, isn't it? Because everyone takes every outcome as a rating of who they are as a person.
Mm-hmm.
And often there's 100 other factors involved that have nothing to do with you.
Right. But people often take it on as like they have full control over that.
I
And
didn't
they
get the
don't.
job, so I'm a failure. I'm not good enough.
Right.
No, maybe there was a
All
better
or nothing.
candidate.
Right.
Yeah.
All or nothing.
Or maybe there was an internal candidate, as you said. It could be 100 things that could happen.
Well, it's always being able to generate a perspective, but well, not all people, but I get a lot of my clients that will be like, well, yeah, but I'm probably right. So it's like, no, you
Yeah.
don't know because you're guessing, you're making assumptions. You don't know. Now, could you be right? Sure. But even if you are, what is that going to do for you? Absolutely nothing. It's going to change nothing when you go with that line of thinking.
All it's going to do is diminish your power.
Right. So, given that, I love it when you always have these good transitions, right? So, what do? We're sticking with the rise, right? So, we reset and integrate the information. So, once you've created an emotional distance from this, right? You've created the space between what happens and what you do next. So, you've created the emotional distance. You have to look at the situation more objectively, which allows you and Dave's talking about how do we rally? Well, I'm getting there. I'm going to tell you, hopefully, right? So you have to ask yourself, and now, if you get good at doing this, now I've been doing this for so long, I can literally go down this list in my head so fast that it's almost like it doesn't even happen because I'm so used to automatically doing it, right? So, but there's very specific questions. Ask yourself, what actually happened? Not what you interpreted. What
Right.
actually happened? What did this bring up in me? So, what feeling or thought am I having? And this is what gets missed so many times. Where am I responsible in this?
Hmm.
Am I
What's
engaged?
my part?
What's my part? That is one of the biggest things that people miss when they have to reset and integrate stuff is they do the what happened and then they figure it out, right? Sort of. Sometimes it's missing pieces.
Yep.
And then what did it bring up in me? Is it like I'm angry, I'm resentful, I'm sad, I'm dismissed, I'm avoided, I feel alone. But then they go, what did I have responsibility for? Now, that does not mean you have responsibility that you did anything wrong. It means like, did you engage? Did you participate extra and escalate it? Did you poke the bear more when you didn't need to? Like whatever it is, try to figure out where am I doing this? Oftentimes, I see a lot of women that I'm like, you're allowing it to happen to you. And before people get pissed when I say that, I say, you're allowing it to happen to you because you want something so badly to change that you're allowing for it to continue in hopes that it will change. So you're hopeaholicing it, chapter of my book, hopeaholic, right?
Yep.
It's instead of being codependent, I want it to be hopeaholic no more because you're taking responsibility for, well, you're being too hopeful that something's going to change. And people go, well, why shouldn't I be hopeful? Because hopefulness is getting you in trouble. You're hoping and banking and betting on something that's not going to change because that person doesn't do that and they're not
Well,
doing work.
what's the fine line between hope and delusion?
Well,
That's what you have to explore.
fabulous question in so
Yeah.
many cases, especially in relational cases, right?
Yeah, hope is good, but at a certain point, it's delusion. You have to understand where that point is.
And there's nothing wrong. Don't get me wrong for all the listeners. Hope is important. We have to
Yep.
have hope so that we move forward, right? But we have to have hope in ourselves. We have to have faith in ourselves. We can't put hope in other people to help us move forward. We have to have our own hope, not I hope that they do this so that I feel better. That's not going to get you there, right? So that leads to what then belongs to the other person. You have to think about what belongs to the other person. If you know what belongs to the other person, what they're doing, and you're able to be like, I have no control over that. I'm not gonna be able to do that. That it bothers me. It upsets me. It disgusts me. It's an abhorrent behavior, whatever. But it's like, if I know what belongs to the other person and I don't own it, then I don't own it.
Right.
And then it gets you to the point of, what can I learn from this? It's, what do I not participate in? What space do I need to create more so that it doesn't happen, so that I can move forward from it and not have this, right? One of my big pieces I've been talking about, like relationally, is let people have less access to your emotional space. Create a space that they can't get to you emotionally, especially if you live with people that are button pushers, right? What can you learn from it? Learn to put space there. That does not mean detach and disengage and shut them out completely, especially if you live with someone, but it means know what you can learn, put in place so that you can have your peace bubble gap.
Mm-hmm.
I call it my Glinda bubble, right?
Mm-hmm.
Put your peace bubble. It's transparent so that you can see in and see out, but you know the score. You're not keeping blinders on. And then in your own mind, not about other people changing, but what do I want to do different? What do I want to do differently next time? What will I do to make it different for me? Not what will I do to make it different so they can treat me better? What will I do to make it so that
Right.
they do this? Nope. If you're doing that, you are not on the rise. You are on the
You're in the treadmill.
you're on you're on the demise, right? You're not on
Yeah.
the rise. You're not on the rise. You're thinking too much about, if they only would change, things would be better.
Yeah.
Nope. That's not how this works. So integration of all of this means that you're taking the lesson without taking on any necessary shame or blame, because you're taking on your own thing. You don't have to decide like an entire experience was good or bad. Something can hurt you and it can teach you. Both can exist at the same time. You can acknowledge that something didn't work without defining yourself by it. Oftentimes people will take it on and have much pain and suffering because they feel that it didn't work because something about themselves is defining that, and that's not necessarily true. The goal in this reset and integrating of the information is to move from, why is this happening to me? And I talk about this, that show I did a few, like 2 years ago in the fall, like right around this time, of about the 4 S's, right? Being soothed, seen, safe, and secure
Right.
emotionally,
Yep.
reparenting ourselves. The goal is to move from that question is, why is this happening to me? Clients say that to me all the time. And you want to move them toward, and you want to move yourself toward, is, what can I understand from this? And how can I use it to become stronger? And why am I allowing it to happen to me when I could not allow it to happen to me? Because I'm going to understand something from it and make sure that I'm going to use that thing I know to make sure it doesn't happen to me, because I'm going to disallow access to that piece of me that gets me triggered up because I'm not
Mm-hmm.
putting enough peace bubble around it.
Learn. Basically, learn.
Right. It's learning. And people
Yeah.
don't look at it like that because they're so ingrained in the moment of the discomfort and the uncomfortability that they get paralyzed. It's very paralytic in a lot of ways, right? Which leads to that piece of, how do you stand up differently, right? We're going right down through the rise in a different way today about uncomfortability. This is where reflection, interpersonal, inside reflection becomes growth. Introspection's a hard thing for people. People don't like to look inward because sometimes it's scary, sometimes
Mm-hmm.
it's hard, sometimes it's just too much for people, because and it's work, and they don't have time in their day, or they might touch on something and that's too much for them, so then they're like, oh, I don't like that, so I'm gonna stay away from that, right? But reflection on oneself and what one has to ask all those questions, what actually happened, what did this bring up in me, what am I responsible for, what are they responsible for, right? All of those questions are reflective, and that leads to growth, right? So that allows you to stand up differently, allows you to show up and lean in differently. So if you truly process an experience and you decide what your new, for people that are watching, my air quotes, what your new response will be, the old response will change, because maybe you chase after things, maybe you withdraw, isolate, distance, become dismissive, become avoidant, become fearful, you over explain, you're a people pleaser.
Yep.
You become defensive, right? Or you try to control the outcome. So many people are trying to control the outcome when it's all their own control is just trying to control themselves.
You react rather than respond.
Right. You're reacting rather than responding, and standing up
Yeah.
differently changes things for you. So here, I just had this conversation with a client this morning. I said to her, you don't need to convince someone else to understand you. They
Right.
either are going to understand you or not. If you spend 2 minutes talking to them, fine. If you're spending 2 hours talking to them and you're still rotating the same story, you're convincing them to understand you. And that means they're not understanding you, nor do they want to. Not because they don't understand you, but because they're not wanting to.
Yeah.
Right? I can set a boundary without becoming angry. Now, someone else might become angry, but I have to be able to sit with their uncomfortability of that. That's not my problem that you're
Yep.
angry because I said you can't treat me like that. You can't talk to me like that. I'm not going to be around you if you do that. So I can set a boundary without becoming angry. This is a big one. I can tolerate someone being disappointed in me. That is probably one of the biggest ones I've seen over my lifetime, not just practice. People have the worst time when people are perceived as, I'm disappointed in you.
Yep.
Right? Right? And sometimes people can be disappointed in you, and sometimes you disappoint people, right? But you have to be able to tolerate that with you have to own it. If you have truly disappointed someone or something, you have to be able to own that. And be
More
able to,
often than not, though, it's a weapon.
oh, it gets weaponized for
Yeah.
big. Yes, exactly. Um,
I mean, sometimes it's legitimate and you have to sit with that and work through it. But most
mhm.
of the time, people are using it as a weapon against you.
Right, exactly. And in that case, you can walk away without needing the other person to validate your decision. If you have to if someone is disappointed and it's not going well, you can walk away. That doesn't mean forever, but you can walk out of the room, you can take a drive, you can disengage for a little while, and say, like in couples therapy, I'm taking 20 minutes and I'll be back, right? You can walk away without needing another person to validate your decision or validate what you said. And if you've made a mistake, this is part of the reset. If you've made a mistake and you're going to stand up about it, you can acknowledge your mistake without attacking yourself, like
Right.
self-degradation. You can make a horrific mistake. You can make a minor mistake, a horrific mistake, whatever it is. You can do that without attacking yourself and torturing yourself. More is not more. The more you torture yourself, the more you punish yourself, it's not going to make anybody. It's I always liken it to people that go into work situations and people are like, oh, Joe's such a great worker, he does everything right. And Joe then gets excited, his dopamine goes up because people are appreciative, so he does more, and then he expects, well, if I do more, then they'll like me more, then they'll give me the raise, and they'll give me more money. You know what happens?
Nope.
Not that.
Yeah.
Because what happens is you're setting up an expectation that people just expect more, but they're not going to give you more.
Right.
Right. So this isn't about becoming harder or less caring. Very important distinction. It's about becoming more grounded with oneself. You're not responding from the version of yourself that is hurt. You're responding from the version of yourself that has learned and grown. The
Right.
whole rise movement that I've been doing this whole year is about becoming a version of yourself that's learning and growing and changing and having accessibility to yourself, not about having other people have accessibility to change you or to give you information that makes you feel yucky. So that means you evolve through action. So this is the last piece of this. Evolve through action. Ultimately, right, your insight doesn't create lasting change by itself. You could have all the insight in the world. People are very insightful. What changes things and evolves things into action is repetition, consistency. The next time you have a trigger and it comes up, um, that's another opportunity, like you said at the beginning, at top of the hour. It's an opportunity to practice a new response. Every time a trigger comes up, it's an opportunity for you to respond differently. You may not do it perfectly. I think I say that 100 times a week, if not more. Nothing is perfect. You may not do it perfectly, but you may still get upset,
Yep.
which is fine. You still might get anxious. You still might be uncomfortable. that's okay, because growth isn't, I never get triggered anymore. Growth is, I do get triggered, but I'm going to recover faster from it. I recognize the pattern sooner. I don't abandon myself. I make a different choice. Those things are about growth. Again, I do get triggered, but I recover faster.
Mhm.
Right? I recognize the pattern sooner, and I don't abandon myself. I don't implode in. I make a different choice.
Yep.
And you have choices, and people often think, I don't have any choice, right? Um, so when you're uncomfortable, every time you stay present through that uncomfortability and you don't run from it, you don't dismiss it, you don't avoid it, um, and escape it, you build emotional capacity. Many people lack capacity because they were taught as children to suppress their ability to have capacity, right? So
Right.
every time you stay present and you sit with your shit, right, instead of escaping it or torturing yourself or punishing yourself, you're building emotional capacity. And many people lack emotional capacity. And every time, and I use that specifically, every time you choose a healthier response, you expand your comfort zone and you elevate, and you elevate your vibration of energy in the world in your capacity. So eventually, what once felt very um, terrifying or so uncomfortable that it wasn't manageable, right? Um, you've now created a space to actually change your capacity to handle it because you've been able to walk yourself through that. So what it means to rise above a situation, and in this case, rise for yourself, reset, integrate, stand up, evolve, right? You don't pretend something doesn't hurt. You don't pretend something doesn't exist, right? When it's not been healthy for you or something you don't like, you allow it to teach you. You have to then integrate whatever it's teaching you. You got to look for it. You can't just avoid it and put it out of your head. You got to integrate what you learn from it about yourself or the other person. You stand back up, right? As Bruce Wayne would say in Batman, Sir Bruce, why do we fall? So that we learn to stand back up, so that we get
Mhm.
back up, right? And we move forward as an evolved, more integrated person of ourselves and version of ourselves. So if I could simplify the whole thing into like a little piece of a quick thing, is I'll repeat it twice, is we pause, we feel, we understand, we then choose something, right, in the healthy direction. We practice, which leads us to evolve. Saying it one more time. We pause. That means give ourselves our space.
Mhm.
We feel. We understand, all within us. We choose. We then practice, which leads to evolution. It's a very, very simple process. Pause, feel, understand, choose, practice, evolve. That doesn't mean it's easy. As David said, it takes work,
It does.
right? But if you want to fully rise, if you want to fully grow in this life and experience, that's what you have to do. Truly, you have to do that. I've learned this over all the years and watching so many clients. I mean, over 100,000 hours of client time over my years. 100,000
Wow.
client hours.
Yeah.
I might have a little advice there. Just a
Might
little.
might have some
Just
insight. Yeah.
just a little insight, right?
Yeah.
So if I could leave you with anything, that's what I'm leaving you with, in that little extra space. For sure. Um, so if anyone has any questions, I like that Dave just says swing that net. Um, if anyone has any questions, as always, you certainly can reach out at kim.lannon@yahoo.com. You can certainly give me a text at my number that's on the screen. I'm having my fur baby talk to me. He's coming over to see me. This is my little 1.5-year-old that's coming in the screen. You can see his ear. There he is. This is Adam. Ash is a good boy. But if you have any questions, certainly reach out. I'm working on my book. I know people are always asking me, like, please don't write a book just telling us about things. Tell us how to do things and how to get through things. So I'm hoping my book will be the one that's out there in the world eventually that, people say at the end, like, oh my God, I actually figured out how to do it. Not just, she just didn't tell us about it. Because most books just tell you about it,
Right.
right?
Yep.
And that's why every week I try to make sure I tell about it, but then I also give you advice on how to do it, right? So, and nothing's perfect, but that's my goal, is that giving us these pieces expanded in a book, but in short on podcast. So again, for everyone that's listening, if you have women in your life, I know that men want this too, so it's coming. But if you have women in your life that want to do a wonderful retreat weekend and they want to spend a weekend with me and some great other women practitioners that are going to help us have a wonderful bonded weekend and reset and restore and rise, November 6th to 8th, just north of Boston in a beautiful inn right near a lake. Please let me know and sign up. Or you want to be on the mailer to get the mailer to sign up, please put it in the comments. And we're a few months out from it. So there's 10 spots available left, and I'd love to see you there. It's going to be a great weekend. And I appreciate you all. Everybody have a wonderful, wonderful week. And I will see you here next week. Go Rise.